of whether or not we fully remove and mitigate the entire building, or we mitigate the sections that we are impacting and disturbing while encapsulating the rest, areas that we potentially will not be disturbing. The challenge that we have with regard to these options is not only, the added time that each takes, but certainly as it relates to the amount of contingency that would be left over if indeed we choose one or the other. For fairly high degree of certainty that we will have to do some additional work on the upstairs bathrooms in order to make them fully ADA compliant as well. So we have that on our horizon to deal with too, probably in the form of change orders. And, hopefully, depending on how this discussion goes with respect to utilizing contingency funds to do those things. The problem is that we are roughly 6 weeks into the project, and we're talking about ways in which we can spend all of the contingency dollars. Therefore, my recommendation is that we issue a change order as it relates to what we call option 2, which would be an encapsulation aspect of asbestos mitigation versus a full mitigation process for the entire building, whether we disturb the areas or not. So with that in mind, option 2, which is the encapsulation option where possible, we anticipate having $62,000, almost $63,000 left for contingencies for things that we have not encountered yet in the building. If we take on option 1, which is a total and complete abatement of all the asbestos in the building, and deal with the potential changes that we have on our horizon for the bathrooms, we will have just over $100 left in the respective contingency. So my proposal is that we look at encapsulation as much as possible and move forward from there. However, we are here tonight to answer any questions you might have and potentially get your blessing one way or the other.
Well, I'd like to share with council, asbestos is only bad when it's disturbed. So if we encapsulate, it's more than an appropriate action. The only time we wouldn't want to do that is if there were designs on the building down the road and we were going to have to mess with the building once again, which after this $4.6 million upgrade, we shouldn't have to do that. So I vote for option 2 and the encapsulation. And I also believe it sets a precedence for this council and for the city in future buildings, because we're coming up to a lot of aging buildings and we're going to be dealing with a lot of asbestos down the road, whether it's with the Casper Business Center, Fire Station 1, whatever it is. And so if we set a precedent now with a practice of encapsulating, it not only saves a lot of money, but it creates zero danger as long as it's not disturbed. So with that said, any discussion concerning this? Is everybody okay with staff recommendation to go with option 2? Okay, there you have it, sir. I'm sorry, Kyle.
I am with one caveat. Carter, maybe this is a question you can answer. It sounds like in the memo we got, the initial quotes that we got were based in part on this asbestos report we had from 1990 that the contractor assumed was all inclusive and accurate. To me, 40 years ago seems like, well, I guess it's 30 years ago. I don't know. I would assume in regards to asbestos, standards have changed, testing equipment's changed, and so I guess I wouldn't have as much faith that a 30-year-old report would be super accurate and all-inclusive. I'm wondering if Casper Business Center, for instance, the quotes that we get for work over there are also, like, I would just want to make sure those are also not based on these 30, 40-year-old reports, and maybe if there's anything we can do to be proactive in, making sure that, as the mayor pointed out, we have a lot of buildings that we're going to need to be doing work on. Fire Station, Casper Business Center, other City Casper properties. Whatever we can do to learn about these things ahead of time, I guess I would just advocate that we go that direction. Thanks.
Yes, sir. You have your direction.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to additional bar and grill licenses. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, you're probably aware that during the most recent legislative session, We were pleased to see some developments take place with the legislation as it relates to bar and grill licenses. And accordingly, the city of Casper now has 6 additional licenses from a bar and grill type, if you will, to deploy into the community if in fact there is that level of interest to absorb all 6 of those licenses. The difference this time around, however, not only is the number of licenses available different, but indeed the way in which these licenses can be used is also a little bit different. You are all familiar with the ratio that you learned about time and time again as it relates to bar and grill licenses, wherein there's a 60-40 split that has to be observed and maintained between food and alcohol sales. Well, now the bar and grill licenses are such that 60% can also include sales relating to entertainment. So a good example that many of you are probably familiar with are the axe throwing. If indeed you have sales in a business that includes axe throwing, that can go towards the 60% side of the ratio and work in favor of a business that has those kinds of offerings. So the question for you tonight is really twofold. Number one, what process would council like to see in terms of deploying these licenses? We've done a number of different ways in the past, albeit with different numbers of licenses. Usually it's not this many licenses. And number two, are you comfortable with the idea of considering ordinance changes that would reflect the flexibility that the statutes now hold for their bar and grill license issuances and bring those things consistent in our ordinances? That is really the questions in front of you tonight. Our city clerk is here to discuss anything additional. Obviously, the attorney as it relates to ordinances as well. We're here for your needs as it relates to this item.
Thanks, sir. Councilor Engelbretson?
I do have a couple of questions regarding.
I don't think you have.
If the licenses, one of them, can we ask the licenses to come back to the city and not be sold on the open market? Is one question. And then the second question is then could we put in stipulations such as maybe not gambling establishments?
Mr. Mayor?
Sir?
Thank you for those questions. I think those are important clarifications to make. Councilor, bar and grill licenses do not have the same characteristics that full retail licenses do, wherein once they are distributed from the council, they become sort of a feature of the market and are available for sale on the open market. Bar and grill licenses do not have that characteristic. And so, yes, those will come back to the council for reissuance should businesses change and those kinds of things. As far as your second question is concerned, a very appropriate question. Gambling does not fit in to the entertainment concept, nor do sexually oriented businesses fit into that scenario either. So you've got, axe throwing, you've got maybe darts, I don't know, bowling perhaps. Simulated golf, absolutely. All those things could potentially figure into that 60% potential.
So I think the question that's being proposed and the staff recommendation is that we consider a proposed ordinance change to allow, since we have these 6 new licenses with new parameters, in a sense, what we would do is change our ordinance to allow anyone currently holding a bar and grill license to have those same parameters. Go ahead, Steve.
The question I was going to ask, which goes along with what Councilor Engelbretson was asking about, is entertainment, is because the Derby Club, 307 horse racing, those are all classified as entertainment. So does that money then count towards their 60%?
It does not.
Because that is not classified as gambling.
It does not.
Definitely not. Okay.
It does not.
Okay.
Sir,
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple things that I would like for us to keep in mind as a group as we talk about potential ordinance changes. To me, a distinction between making the 60% of their revenues from food compared to entertainment. I guess one of the pros of food is that it can temper, the more you drink, food helps to temper, I guess, those, the results of that, how inebriated people end up. And so you don't get that with entertainment. So just something for us to keep in mind if we're talking about totally removing that obligation is that, folks won't have to serve food, which can help temper some of the effects of alcohol. And is I would really love to see, I don't see any representatives here from mental health or social services, but I still really would like some more guidance for our group as far as it relates to alcohol density research and what we think is a comfortable amount of density of outlets. I don't want all of these extra licenses, which is, we had 13, it sounds like now we have 19. And then here in the next few years, we're gonna have 27, essentially doubling the amount of licenses that we have. I don't want them to all end up in one specific part of town where then we see these unintended consequences of impacts of crime and other things that can be associated with alcohol establishments. So I guess I would just love to see more advocacy from our mental health groups on what is the most responsible way to disperse these amongst the community. And then my last point, I've taken my soapbox many times on how quickly we liberalize alcohol-related law, but clutch our pearls anytime we talk about decriminalizing cannabis or something. And so I just want to, I guess I'm looking forward to the conversations about this, about how easily this moves through our body, and we lax the ordinance and increase the amount of licenses for people. I just think the logic and the standards that we're applying across the board should also apply to alcohol. It is a drug. 40-something% of crime in Natrona County is alcohol involved already. So I'm wondering what impact, if any, doubling our bar and grill licenses will have on that. Just things for us to keep in mind as we talk about this a little bit further. That's all I have.
Councilor Ingebretson.
Just say that honestly, I think that having the bar and grill license is important because it helps our infrastructure. So you have businesses and restaurants that cannot currently come in because we have none available. And so we have spaces sitting vacant that could be sold and then brought in some more restaurants, which I believe that more restaurants helps the community. And as the things are growing, it's going to be a benefit to the city of having more restaurants and the availability to have that. So I don't necessarily see that necessarily as a negative to that. It's just, I think that if we were able to, and it sounds like we can, it's just I am concerned about the gambling aspect that is growing substantially in this community.
Well, with that said, the activity that's, or the type of entertainment they're talking about is axe throwing, golfing. The gambling doesn't play into it. So it's physical activity type of entertainment, which is just as good as food, as far as exerting and helping with that. But I'm not a proponent either way. I know, Carter, do we have the ability to say we don't want them? I mean, when the state puts them out there for you, I would hate to ever think of inhibiting business opportunities like Councilor Ingebretson said. That would, to me, and I don't think every time somebody opens an alcohol establishment that necessarily means there's people getting drunk in there. They're supposed to follow the rules as well. But I don't know, it's a catch-22. I think if we get our mental health professionals in here, they're going to be adamantly against it, or at least I certainly would be if I was in mental health, because anything that's going to change any part of you physiologically is going to be something I would be into. Do you have an answer for that? Or
Mr. Mayor, I would absolutely say council does not have to deploy those licenses. You can hold them in advance. You can deploy some of them. You may get 6 applications, 3 of which you like, 3 of which you don't for whatever reason.
sure.
You certainly get to choose how and in which ways those licenses are deployed or not deployed.
Okay, I would say if we do decide to deploy any of them, that it should be across the board for anybody else that's holding that same license, ordinance wise. But anyway, Counselor Haskins.
So I like the idea of more restaurants because I'm a foodie. But I do wonder, currently axe throwing, I can bring my own booze in, which means if I choose to leave drunk, they're not going to stop me. Whereas if we were to give them the license, then they have that responsibility over us, which I feel like might put a little more responsibility in their hands. So I'm not 100% sure I want to have them selling booze, but if we're letting them just bring in your own, at least then they have some rules and responsibilities.
Counselor Gamble, sorry.
You can take,
Okay, go ahead.
I only hop in front of him.
Vice Mayor, jump on.
I think Kyle brings up a fair point, but I also think we just have to be balanced about it, and I think we don't have to use them right away. I think we can kind of be somewhat thoughtful of how we utilize it, but I think we have to be thoughtful of balancing both the idea of bringing in more establishments that offer alcohol, but also the idea how it impacts our community and their health. So I think we can be mindful of those things and just have those thoughtful conversations as we move forward with it. But I think it'd be good for our economy and for our continued growth of our community. So
Agreed. Counselor Gamble.
Thanks, Bruce. I was curious if Carter or maybe Flora could speak to the 13 that I guess, what do you see as current demand for these licenses? Are we current? It's been a while since I've been updated. Are we currently out? And do we have kind of a waiting list of people that are waiting for those? Could you speak to the current demand of licenses at the moment?
Mr. Mayor, if I could punt to the city clerk.
Yep, she's making her way to the podium, I see.
So we currently have all of them out. There's one that's not active. But they are out and being used. We don't have a list of people who are waiting. And we haven't had anybody ask us recently for bar and grill license. Granted, we were out of them, so I think they knew that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the comments I want to make too, because I guarantee you I'll see this on social media tomorrow, that the city's council is considering more liquor licenses, yet there's nothing for kids. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you publicly. This is a private business that would come in to get this license. It is a private business that would choose to, whether they want to open a bar and grill or some type of an activity place that allows alcohol, or open something for children. And I can tell you in this community, kid-friendly businesses don't cut it. They don't make it. People have tried it 100 times, if they haven't tried it 1,000, and they never survive. So when you're talking about your own personal dollars, you are certainly welcome to open any business you want in this community. But asking the city or kind of deflecting on us and saying you're allowing alcohol but not kid stuff, that's not true. We want kid-friendly businesses, but I can tell you they're not very profitable. That's why we don't have many of them here anymore. So with that said, what actual, I guess, what direction are you looking for, sir?
Mr. Mayor, I think it would be helpful to know what method you'd like us to use in order to determine the interest in these licenses. In the past, we've used sort of a bid process, a proposal process, if you will, to be submitted on a date certain, give council the opportunity to review the proposals and make decisions accordingly. I think that's what I'd recommend, because I don't have a feel for how many potential proposals there would be out there. My hunch is that there's not 6 to 8 to 10 proposals ready to be brought to your attention. However, I'd rather open it up and see what happens versus make any assumptions at this point.
And before one is handed out, it would be vetted by the council anyway, right?
Absolutely.
So is everybody okay with that scenario? Can I get a thumbs up for that? Okay, thank you. There you have it, sir.
Very good. So I suppose what would help then is we'll have the clerk's team put together a process, time frame, make sure you're comfortable with it, and then go for it.
Well, I also think in order to make this available to the public, that we should probably look into the ordinance change or have the city attorney do his research on that. because if we have a particular type of a business, and I don't want to name out a name, but let's say there's a golfing establishment that wants to do this, but they don't have a restaurant and they can use their entertainment portion of it for that percentage, you know, that's going to have a huge variance on who applies for this and who doesn't.
Sure.
So we should probably look into the ordinance as well, to make sure that that we're drawing the right type of clientele asking for these licenses.
Mr. Mayor, I would agree. And if it's possible, I'd like to see the two processes work in tandem with each other so that, you know, we can have our businesses start working on their proposals with these kinds of ideas in mind and have the time they need to put together something substantive and of merit and give you their best foot forward.
I think that would probably be the best foot forward. Is that okay with everyone?
That's good.
Okay. All right, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the non-domesticated animal feeding preview, which before you start, did you get the email on the raccoons? I'm just curious.
Sure, I saw an email.
We have a bunch of us have received the emails, and they would like the raccoons to be included with the squirrels because the raccoons are feeding them. I guess they want them back in the garbage can. I don't know, but I thought I better throw that out there.
So, Mr. Mayor, Council, currently it is not legal under our ordinance to feed.
Okay.
Squirrels were exempted, so under the proposal that exemption would be stripped out, but feeding any bird-bearing wild non-domesticated animal is prohibited.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to add them anyway. Okay, very good. Well, with that said then, sir, non-domesticated animal feeding preview.
Mr. Mayor, council, really, this was just the opportunity to let you know that indeed we did strip the exemption, if you will, for both squirrels and turkeys out of the current ordinance. And, you know, for the most part, that's essentially what you're going to see in terms of your draft first reading tonight. You'll also notice that songbirds and so forth are allowed to be fed. Which in most circles would include pigeons. I know we've had that conversation as well. So we just wanted you to be aware of those changes, make sure you knew that we did what we think you asked us to do. And we think are ready for that first reading with respect to the guidance we heard, at least we thought you heard.
Very good. Questions, Steve?
So you're saying that pigeons are against feeding or they are a songbird?
Mr. Mayor, I'm suggesting that pigeons are kind of that songbird class, and so that they would be allowed to be fed in appropriate feeders.
Mr. Mayor.
Sir?
Yeah, the chief and I did do some research and they would be considered a songbird. It gets very problematic to carve them out and still allow songbird feeding in general. But I think the one other aspect of this, previously you were allowed to feed birds in general. Now it's just songbirds. So we also prohibit the feeding of geese and waterfowl because those would not be songbirds. So basically waterfowl, squirrels and turkeys would now be prohibited.
So we can literally still have forgive the pun, but the little old lady on the park bench throwing out feed and bringing the pigeons to downtown.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, there would be no express prohibition on that. There are other ways to attack that. Some communities have specific regulations that all feed must be in a container that is inaccessible by, non-bird wildlife, those type of things. This is a relatively straightforward and simple way to, I think, address what was identified, I believe, as council's concern. But certainly down the road or during this process, at your direction, we can look at other options.
Any other questions? Okay.
One quick one. I know
Mr. Gamrot.
it's quick, so we got to get to it. But I was curious, maybe for the so that we don't have to make capping come all the way up here. Could you speak to how do you see, Mr. Nelson, this being enforced? I've gotten lots of comments about folks that, what if I'm trying to genuinely feed my songbirds in the backyard and a squirrel is seen anywhere near my bird feeder? Are you guys going to cite me for that? Could you speak to how you see this being enforced? My assumption is that it'll be mostly complaint driven. I don't imagine our police officers are going to be driving up and down the street, looking in people's backyards to see what they're doing. Could you speak a little bit to how you see this being enforced?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Counselor Gamrot. So Chief McPeters, I think, did address this and as he mentioned, they're not going to be the squirrel police. And so it is going to be, I believe, certainly from law enforcement complaint driven. Certainly if any citation is issued and it hits our office, we're going to have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was an actual intent to feed these prohibited animals. And so in the scenario if you've got a feeder and a squirrel shows up, I mean, we're not going to prosecute that. And so I think more than anything, this will give PD a little bit of, traction to hopefully educate folks and get voluntary compliance. And then I see this only being formally enforced in cases of maybe the most egregious cases where you've got somebody out in a flock of turkeys just throwing feed, that type of thing.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, let's move on to agenda review. You have anything?
I do not.
Okay, I do. So, and I'm going to be looking for a thumbs up from council. I have written a prepared statement, and I will explain afterwards. I would like to see us remove the discussion concerning the Wellspring Clinic from our work session agenda. The following are a list of reasons why. They are a legally operating business within the city of Casper. Because of this fact, it is not in our purview as counselors to regulate or to investigate concerns with this clinic. Now, where this comes from is we have been inundated with emails from a particular group with over 50 questions asking us to investigate this clinic. It is not the job of this council or the purview for us to be investigating anything. We are a governing body. It is up to you to do your own investigations or to hire your own attorneys to do these investigations. And if in fact you do find an infraction, then it's up to you to take it to the correct governing body, which is not the city council. It would be your police department, your code enforcement, your public health department, whatever it is. This is not our purview, and we cannot use our city resources to run down rabbit holes for everyone when this stuff can be done by you. If research and violations are suspected, it must be researched by the individual or their counsel. If they are founded, then it should be reported to the proper authorities, example, the police, code enforcement, etc. The Supreme Court trumps any ordinance or any resolution passed by this body. Therefore, we will await their ruling before this council takes any more action. The public is, of course, always welcome to speak to council at a regularly scheduled meeting during the public comment period. They're also welcome to bring forth concerns and resolutions, which they have done in the past, that will be considered, but it will not be responded to until the end of that meeting, if at all. Although my heart goes out to the folks who have spoken to us, I am on your side in this, truly, and my agreement on some of your issues is certainly apparent, but this is not the appropriate venue for the city council to entertain any further without clear direction from our superior governing bodies. And I just wrote down one example just to give you, if a woman's son gets run down by a drunk driver, it would be no different if she walked into these council chambers and asked us to shut down all the alcohol establishments in town, or even ask us to shut down the bar that the guy was at. That is not our purview. That is not what we do as counselors, and we wouldn't investigate that bar either. That is not what we do. So, like I said, my heart goes out to you, but this is not the place or the body to do such a thing. So with that said, I would ask for a thumbs up to have that removed off of our work session agenda. It is so removed, and we are done with that. So we're going to take a 1-minute break, and we will come back with our regularly scheduled city council meeting.
Everything comes out. Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
also live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. I now call the July 18th, 2023 regular council meeting to order. All councilors are present with Mr. Bond appearing virtually. Please, let's join Councilor Haskins in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Thank you all. Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 5th, 2023 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on July 15th, 2023.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Gamrow, seconded by Councilor Pollock. Any amendments? Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
We get Councilor Bond also? Okay, please record the vote. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 5th, 2023 executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Haskins,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Gamroth. Any amendments? Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Okay, with Councilor Bond voting aye along with us, please record the vote. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the July 18th, 2023 general bills and claims as audited by city manager Napier.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Pollock,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Haskins. Any abstentions or nay votes?
Mayor, I'd like to abstain from 4B, please.
Okay, Councilor Gamroth abstaining 4B. All others voting aye? All others voting aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilor Bond voting aye as well. Would you please record the vote?
Your conflict claim is separated out.
Oh, I apologize.
So that was a vote for the rest of the.
Who looks at the script?
I do. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the July 18th, 2023 conflict claim as audited by city manager Napier.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Vice Mayor Pacheco, seconded by
So moved.
Councilor Engelbretson.
Mr. Mayor.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. I don't want to get ahead of you. I'd like to abstain from this.
Okay, we'll get there. Any abstentions or nay votes? Sounds like Councilor Gamroth is going to abstain from that.
Eager to abstain.
Huh?
Eager to abstain.
He means
You guys caught me off guard last time.
It's all right. An eager abstention from Councilor Gamroth. Are all others voting aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Bond, thank you. Please record the vote. Okay, thank you. Now is the time we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. This portion of the meeting is dedicated to the public to allow you time to voice your concerns. Therefore, council will take communications under advisement. If they choose to respond, it will be done at the end of the meeting. Please state your name, direct all questions and comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal obscenities or threats will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to the city manager. If council chooses to address these matters, it will be done during the introductions of measures and proposals by council. Presentations will be limited to 5 minutes. No time extensions will be permitted. Please note that public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period. So please hold your comments on those particular items until we reach them. Sir, would you like to approach?
Yes, please.
Please do. State your name.
Dakota Kemmer. I just had a few concerns, with homelessness. I know that has been a big problem here in this town. As for any ideas that you guys have possibly come up with, on the subject of how to help or fix the situation, as well as if there were, I know earlier you had said something about if we had problems with certain places, that would be our own research. I came in a little late with that, so I was wondering if we had problems with, failures or not, like a failure in the judicial system, or not like per se a failure, but a mistake that has been made. Who would we bring that to? Because when I've brought it to officers or the court system, they say that's over their head, or certain things I can't give you any legal advice
we have no one to come to. And my situation with homelessness has to do with the judicial system here in Casper making a mistake, and even the DA had even said so. So
So you're talking about the municipal court system or the
Um,
county circuit court or the
I want to
district
say
court?
circuit.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but I just figure I'd ask who to bring that up to, because I know like federal aspect on things, I'm like, there's a due process on things. And there was no due process done to my entire situation, to where I owe, if I don't pay $161 to housing authority, I won't be able to get back into it. And it's not even my job to pay for it. I was not head of household. And so it's a whole slew of things. So who would I bring that up to?
My guess would be to contact the county commission. Circuit court is under their jurisdiction. It has nothing to do with the city. We only rule over the municipal court system. So when it comes to circuit court, that would fall under the county's preview. I can't give you legal advice either, but my guess would be you would be better off approaching the county commission.
I'd ask Eric.
Eric?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council, so obviously, yeah, I can't give legal advice. It's a little bit vague as to what the issue is. But if it is a pending criminal matter, certainly reaching out to legal aid, potentially the public defender's office on the circuit court while housed in a county facility is part of the state judicial system. So the commissioners aren't going to have any direct oversight. So I would start perhaps with legal aid or the public defenders and yeah, depending on the exact nature of the issue, then they could perhaps send you elsewhere. So.
Thank you. Dakota, have you gone to legal aid?
Yes.
You have.
I've gone to legal aid. I have gone pretty much every route I possibly can.
Okay.
And I was getting skipped.
Have you gone to the public defender's office?
I had gone to them. I had spent 46 days in jail for this very situation. The same day I had proof to win custody over my daughter and prove all of my innocence. The city court building said that I could not bring my phone in. I needed to get it reapproved. All of my evidence that I was late for that court date because they told me to take my phone to my car. I lost custody over my daughter, and I've been homeless since 2021.
Dakota, have you talked to Christy Oster?
I don't know. That's I'm not from here completely. I've been
So-
here long enough to observe.
No, that's okay. So Christy Oster's community case manager.
Okay.
That we are kind of working through the people that need those types of resources. So I could probably get you in connection with Christy. I work with her.
I appreciate it.
And so that might be a stepping, maybe she works a lot with people from the
Anything that
mission.
can help me, I would appreciate any help you guys.
Maybe we can start with that
I appreciate it.
to see if we can maybe get you some down the road where we need to, and some of the work that we're doing in my day job that I do. So maybe there's something I can get you involved with Christy.
So why don't you stick around tonight and get with Vice Mayor and see if he can help you get with Christie, okay?
Okay.
That sound good?
Thank you for
Okay.
coming
Thanks,
tonight.
Dakota.
Thank you. Thanks, Ray. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to council this evening? Ma'am, did you want to? Yes, we are. Yes, ma'am. If that's what you're here for, yes, ma'am. Anyone else? All right, let's move on. I thank you. Establish a date of public hearing please read the consent agenda title.
Establishing August 1st, 2023 as the public hearing date for consideration of new special malt beverage permit number 2 for the city of Casper, doing business as Casper Ice Arena, located at 1801 East 4th Street.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing date just read.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Kathy, seconded by Counselor Engebretson. Any abstentions or nay votes?
I'll abstain, please.
Okay, with Counselor Pollock's abstention noted, everyone else, all voting aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Counselor Bond, yes, okay, please record the vote.
With Councilor Pollock abstaining and all other councilors voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of an ordinance regarding JTL Group Incorporation Addition Subdivision. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. I do. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier dated July 18th, 2023. Exhibit number 2, Star Tribune proof of publication on July 3rd, 2023.
Thanks, sir. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, councilors. This is an opportunity for the council to consider an annexation request, which also includes a plat submittal and a zoning classification as well, for about 5 acres located just adjacent to Bryan Stock Trail and in the neighborhood of the McKenzie Dog Park, wherein the petitioner is seeking annexation in order to receive access to the city's utilities. And so with that, the request also includes a zoning classification for a C4 highway business designation, which is consistent with the surrounding area and was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thanks, sir. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of an ordinance regarding JTL Group and Corporation addition, please approach the lectern. Okay, there being no one to speak, is there anyone wishing to speak against an ordinance regarding JTL Group Incorporated addition? All right, very good. I declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
Approving annexation, plat, and zoning, creating the JTL Group Incorporated Addition subdivision.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read. Moved by Councilor Engelbrecht, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Discussion. Anyone?
Just one question.
Sir?
I was hoping someone, maybe Carter, could shed context on the cost of creating sidewalks butting up against city properties deferred until an unknown future time due to lack of currently existing infrastructure on the east side. That makes sense to me, but I was just curious, P&Z, what sort of parameters did they put on that? Like, does a certain amount of the east side of the street need to be constructed before that, deferred sidewalk creation takes place? I was just, I don't want this issue lacking details or structure later on if it were ever to be, you seem to catch my train of thought, but I'll just end it right there.
I'll take a stab at it, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Please.
Councilor, the basic idea is that consistent with any development that would occur in the area, and as a part of the subdivision agreement that's been submitted in conjunction with this, that sidewalk would then be required to be constructed. Council has that authority to require that at the appropriate moment in time, and we would suggest that that would be consistent with development in the area.
So it's kind of up to our discretion once we feel like development gets to the point where it's necessary. Okay,
That's essentially it. Yep.
thanks.
Any further? Yes, ma'am.
Follow-up question,
Please.
then, if that's the approach, how do we go about monitoring development in that area once we annex, plat, and rezone? Development rolls on, right? We don't really touch that
I just got that.
again, except to enforce, this deferred building. So what's the monitoring process for that so that we can make a determination?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, that too is a fair question. Generally speaking, when plats are filed, when building permits are exercised, subdivisions are put in place, all of those would be triggers either at the council level or the staff level to enact that aspect of the agreement and make those requirements happen.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? All right. Any amendments? Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Councilor Bond, thank you. Please record the vote.
With all confidence voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of an ordinance regarding Elkhorn Village Addition Number 3 subdivision. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier dated July 18th, 2023. Exhibit number 2, Star Tribune proof of publication on July 3rd, 2023.
Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The Elkhorn Valley Drive and East 12th area is the subject area that we're discussing at this point. This is an annexation request as well. The plat that's being proposed, as you see here on your screen, is accomplishes a couple things. First of all, it consolidates 6 lots into 5. It also increases the size of those 5 lots, which you know would be developable at a residential basis. The memo discusses the need for the petitioner to provide the added pieces of right-of-way necessary to develop 12th Street along the lines of the development here on to the south, if you will, of the exhibit that you see here in front of you, within a year of the passage of this request. Furthermore, this agreement would require that the developer at the time, sort of consistent with what we just did over there at the JTL annexation, to develop 12th Street to the extent of the development when development and or the city deems appropriate that piece of right-of-way be developed appropriately and consistent with the needs that 12th Street would have at the time. And so with that, Mr. Mayor and Council, the Planning Commission also approved this annexation request, this plat submittal and zoning designation.
Thank you, sir. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of an ordinance regarding Elkhorn Village Edition number 3 subdivision to please approach the lectern. Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance regarding Elkhorn Village Edition number 3 subdivision? Okay. There being no one to speak for or against, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
Plat zoning creating the Elkhorn Village Edition number 3 subdivision.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Gamrot, seconded by Councilor Pollock. Discussion, anyone? Sir.
Question about the down the road 12th Street. You are asking the developer to put that extension in at a time later date. What happens if that developer closes down? Who then is responsible for the extension of 12th Street?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, it would be the owner, whoever that would be. So that will carry through to whoever that owner becomes and is.
If they have deeded the property over to the city, there is no owner.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Or are you saying that it would become the responsibility of the HOA if there is one?
it would be the responsibility of the adjacent property owner. So whoever the development is sold to, whoever becomes the developer, if the developer should change hands, those would be the folks that would be responsible for the development of 12th Street.
I guess what I'm asking is if all of those lots are built and George's construction developer closes up shop and leaves, then there is no developer. All of the lots have been sold. They're all privately owned. So now what you're saying is the people that own the north and the south lots at that particular point have to pay for the extension of 12th Street.
Mr. Mayor, I could certainly defer to Mr. Collins to give a much more detailed answer if that would help. Is that okay with you?
Mr. Collins, would you mind, please?
Everybody hear me over here, so I don't have to try to make.
You're just fine right there with me.
I believe the way that we structured this one, because that's a good point, Counselor, is to spread that cost out among the 5 lots. And each of those property owners would have an obligation kind of tied to their own properties that would show up on a title report that at some point in the future that they may have to pay for a portion of that street. I believe that's the way to structure that.
I just didn't want it because we've seen developers come and go. And I just was concerned about it being dumped on those two individual
This
houses.
is a strange, strange one, and you're right to pick up on it, and we picked up on the same thing, and it's kind of a creative solution. It's not the best solution, but, I think we do have it covered with those 5 lots that are involved in this plan.
Thank you.
Well, and we very much appreciate the due diligence of our planning and zoning commission. So thank you, Craig. Any further discussion? Any amendments? Okay. Any abstentions or nay votes?
Abstaining?
All others voting aye,
Uh,
including Councillor Bond, please record the vote.
And all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of an ordinance regarding the feeding of non-domesticated animals. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Eric Nelson to J. Carter Napier and City Council dated July 10th, 2023. Exhibit number 2, regular meeting minutes establishing public hearing as published in the Star Tribune on July 15th, 2023.
Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, council. Council will recall that this was essentially driven by a request from Game and Fish, wherein they acknowledge the overpopulation issues that we have in this community with respect to wild turkeys. Pursuant to the discussion that council had thereafter, council also suggested that the consideration be given for the feeding of squirrels as a part of this amendment being proposed to you this evening. So consistent with what we told you this in pre-meeting just a few minutes ago, this is an opportunity to respond to the suggestion by Game and Fish as it relates to turkeys, as well as to deal potentially with the issues that many folks are experiencing with squirrels as well. And so the exemptions that have previously or currently be given to squirrels and turkeys would be changed with the passage of this ordinance, wherein those kinds of animals would not be allowed to be fed any further if this ordinance does pass.
Thank you, sir. This time I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of an ordinance regarding the feeding of non-domesticated animals to please approach the lectern. Ma'am?
Yeah.
Please approach. Please state your name.
Susan Shepherd Ford. I sent a letter to the council. And I just want, I'm not gonna repeat myself because you've all read it, but I just want to let you know that we really do need code enforcement. And as far as feeding the raccoons, you mentioned somebody just feeding, you made it sound very mild. It is not. This man, this particular person, Friday had 5, the big feed bags. They're not small. 5 big feed bags delivered to his house. Just several weeks before, it was 6 bags. So we have an overpopulation that is impacting Nancy English Park in our neighborhood. It's out of control. So that's really all I have to say. I know code enforcement takes care of it, not you, but I just want to let you know how difficult this problem is. And I know raccoons aren't on your agenda, but I'd like them to be. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I will let you know that I found out tonight that raccoons are not allowed to be fed already. There's already an ordinance against doing such a thing. So, and you did come to the right place because the council is the one that decides to pass that ordinance to not allow the feeding of the turkeys anymore. And I will also let you know there was a letter from Bob Mullen that I will make note of, who is ill and couldn't make it, but he is pretty much on the same exact track that you're on. So he very well may.
So that's probably why.
And I thank you for coming. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against this ordinance? Okay. There being no others to speak for or against regarding the feeding of non-domesticated animals, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
Section 6.04.040, keeping of pets, livestock, or fowl, limitations, feeding of non-domesticated animals prohibited.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor, seconded by Councillor Pollock. Any discussion? Sir.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Sue, for coming to speak. You're one of many stories we've heard. Yours is raccoon related, but Bob's was related to turkeys. He lives over in the Kaufman area, but you know, similar story. He's got folks in his neighborhood that will spread corn even on his property up and down the street, and he's out there having to shovel it back up because otherwise he's got 40 turkeys that climb all over his roof, damage his shingles, climb all over his car, get turkey scat everywhere, and that can obviously lead to issues if you have dogs or cats that go outside and could consume that. So we hear a lot about raccoons. It's, you know, we're getting mixed opinions on this. A great illustration was, I was talking to somebody about this at one of the recent David Street concerts, and they were telling me, you know, I like seeing the turkeys. I don't think we should prohibit feeding them. And then somebody who I don't even know right next to me said, F Thomas Gobbles. Like he very strongly, he hates Thomas Gobbles. He hates the turkeys. So I just think that kind of illustrates the bit of polarization we have on this issue. A lot of people really like the animals, like to feed them, and it's kind of a hobby of theirs, but the unintended consequences that some of the folks in those feeding areas are having serious issues, damage to their property, just an explosion of the population. So for folks that missed our pre-meeting, I guess I would just like to remind them of the update we got from the city attorney that this would be mostly complaint driven. We're not going to create the squirrel Gestapo looking in, you know, peeking over people's backyards, seeing who they're feeding. It will be mostly these egregious cases like Sue, like Bob, where they have somebody in their neighborhood that is egregiously violating this ordinance. And in those cases, this ordinance will give our police department the ability to act and curb some of that unwanted behavior. But I guess to Sue's point about raccoons already being covered by ordinance, I would, maybe that's a good question for you, city attorney. What sort of, according to our current ordinance, what conditions have to be met for our code enforcement to be able to act on somebody violating this ordinance? I would love to, you know, since this ordinance already addresses folks like Sue, and we've heard from other people that are dealing with raccoons, which are already currently included in our ordinance, what does that look like to get enforcement? Could you offer any context? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilor. So obviously to document what's going on, and then I'm not sure if it's Metro or if it's the PD, but to make a complaint and to provide that information. I think in a very egregious case where it's just blatant, you know, where you've got half a dozen raccoons, and that's no joke. Driving back from the fair Saturday night, going down Collins, there was at least 10 of them that just came scurrying around. So that I've seen it myself. But I think to document that, to make the complaint, contact the PD, and then they'll investigate and take whatever, steps that they deem appropriate. So that would be my advice.
Well, additionally, I think we can actually contact the Game and Fish now. Once the ordinance is changed, they'll have teeth. Am I correct?
We'll be able to use management actions better that we have, whether if it would be trapping or hazing those turkeys. It's really hard to do that. If the neighbor's feeding, it's hard to get turkeys moved around or scared of people or into a trap to get relocated.
Thank you. Thanks for weighing in. Did you have something? Please.
Follow up.
Sure.
In the specific case here, Sue, she's provided some information to us along with neighbors listed, about 10 of them who attest to what's going on there, has indicated that she has contacted Metro. So I'm wondering if we might be able to follow up on that particular circumstance as well. Great.
All right. Appreciate the discussion. Are there any amendments? Okay. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
With Councillor Bond, please record the vote. Thank you. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of an ordinance regarding continuing the 5 cent optional general purpose excise tax. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from J. Carter Napier and Eric Nelson, the City Council, dated July 12, 2023. Exhibit number 2, regular meeting minutes establishing public hearing as published in the Star Tribune on July 15, 2023.
Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, councilors, thank you. Council has asked if this idea come forward in order to consider whether or not the extension of the current cycle be extended indefinitely pursuant to an ordinance that you would pass potentially, and then forward to the county commission for their consideration. As council is aware, the county commission actually has the final say with regard to whether or not that extension request will be honored. Furthermore, the extension request that the council might put forward, depending on how this process goes, has to be in conjunction with other communities that have the same interest and have gone through the same process and passed a similar ordinance in order for that to be appropriately submitted to the county commission for their consideration. There certainly has been some confusion as it relates to whether or not this is making the 5th cent permanent. The answer is this does not make the 5th cent permanent. The statutes, as City Attorney Nelson has identified previously, are clear that permanency versus extension indefinitely are 2 different things, and therefore the recourse for future councils and future commissions are different in terms of what they can do to reverse those actions should that ever be of interest. Should we ever get to that point that this is ultimately passed by all the bodies we just identified. This is the first reading. The public hearing is tonight. Should it pass in first reading, there are still 2 other readings that need to take place, as well as 2 other opportunities for council to weigh, for citizens to weigh in and therefore potentially move forward from there.
Thank you, sir. This time I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of an ordinance regarding the 5th cent optional excise tax to please approach the lectern. In favor of.
Point of order.
Thank you.
Yeah, folks, if we can,
Ma'am, I'm gonna, point of order, Mayor, sorry.
go ahead, sir.
The talking in the gallery is very distracting and disrespectful to us and the people in here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Good evening, Mayor. Pat Sweeney, 951 North Kimball. I am totally in favor of this resolution and ordinance to put in front of the county commissioners. I am hopeful other communities will join with the city of Casper because the 5th cent not only is important to the county, but also very important to Casper, but it's crucial to Midwest. Edgerton was in my house district. And to absolutely, without the 5th cent, they will absolutely dry up and blow away. No ifs, ands, or buts about it in my mind, in particular, Edgerton. Maybe to a lesser extent, bar none, but it has been a very good thing for bar none. And so I really appreciate that. Mills will have to make their own decision of, but I encourage them to take a hard look at this because I know the 5th cent is important to them and to Evansville. And the fact that people might say, well, we have to vote on that every 4 years. And I believe that's accurate. But it's proven over time, since I think 1974, that our community has come out strongly in favor of the 5th cent. And I'm a resident of Casper. Some of the other folks here tonight against this obviously are not residents of Casper, but are residents of Natrona County. I appreciate their comments. One last thought is, if this could be resolved, then the 6th cent, to me, the relevance of the special projects is critical also. And I'm in particularly interested across the board on the 6th cent for water and sewer issues across the board. That meaning, I know well from the ARPA funding and the CARES Act funding, but ARPA in particular and the infrastructure funding, that Evansville, Mills, the city of Casper, bar none, maybe to a lesser amount, but they will see the value of the 6th cent if we all go together on water sewer issues, with them, bar none, now taking over the Wardwell water system. And the lack of the mills will go away because of the special district. And I believe they will see the value. And absolutely, Midwest Edgerton, they have, Edgerton still has some wood pipe in the ground. So these are all things that I think we as citizens all need to help with. And this just makes good sense. Lastly, the city of Casper has done an unbelievably great job on the use. I don't believe a bit of penny of our 5th cent has been wasted. And in no way, no how. And it's remarkable to me that the city of Cheyenne and the county of Laramie has resoundingly passed the 6th cent.
Time's up, sir. I appreciate you coming to speak to us, Mr. Sweeney. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, really?
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or in favor of the 5th cent? Okay. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to an ordinance regarding the 5th cent optional excise tax to please approach the lectern. Before we start your time, I will tell you the middle finger was not appreciated. Every one of us saw it. And if you continue with that behavior, we'll have you escorted out. So if we can maintain decorum, that's fine. If you maintain decorum, you're welcome to speak. So please state your name and the floor is yours.
Judy Jones, 335 North 8 Mile. I live in the county, but I have a business in Evansville. So I am concerned about the city's 1 cent funds. Done some digging around and I found where it's 15-23. It hasn't been adopted yet. You're trying to adopt it. Evansville is saying no. Mills is saying no. Everyone I've talked to has said no. You're basically stealing the rights of the voter to decide whether they want to go on with it or not. And I don't appreciate taking the back door about this. I think this should have went to the people to even do this ordinance before you guys do this. Let's see, I want to know whose grand idea is, and I want to know which lawyer found this little provision to try to backdoor us with the county commissioners. Can I have some names? the lawyers that put this together?
Ma'am, this time's yours, so you're welcome to use it.
Oh, so you're not gonna answer?
I will answer you at the end of the session. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, basically, I just think that this is ridiculous. Nothing's gonna stop you from going from 6 cents to 7 cents to 7 cents. There's no provision in there to stop at the 1 penny. And I've heard talk that you guys are gonna try to shove through a 6 cent after you get the next 1 penny. And I think it's wrong. I think you guys are micromanaging yourselves right into a corner. And if you continue down this highway, a lot of you guys are gonna be looking for a new job. Thank you.
I'm gonna, we don't have to respond till the end, but I'm gonna respond to you. You're welcome. This was, we have a PAC group that gets together concerning 5th cent, and they bring ideas to the council. And this was one of their ideas. And for us, if you think about it, for 50 years, you have to let me talk, I let you. For 50 years, this has been voted on and approved at a 70% or better rate, countywide. Now, this isn't just the city of Casper, this isn't the entire county. And I'll tell you why they approve it. Because everybody, most 70% of our people see the benefit from it. They see our roads, our water, our sewer. We pay the lowest water, sewer, and trash bills in damn near in the entire country, because 1 cent helps subsidize all that stuff. It does a lot for our community, and there is nothing I or anyone on this council will ever vote for that has a 70% wide approval, and this does. So it only makes sense. Evansville, where you live, will not survive without 5th cent. They would be gone.
Then why are they voting no?
I can't answer you that. I don't know why. I don't know why they're, but I can tell you them, Midwest and Edgerton, I can't believe they would survive without it. They use it operationally. The city can't do that. Once you're a city, you can only use it for infrastructure. So it goes to our roads, our water, our sewer, everything else. Evansville, that's actually operational money for their budget. So without it, they're not going to survive. You talk about being a business owner there, I'd be rallying the troops. Because here's the great thing about 1 cent that everybody forgets. Every person that comes into our county from somewhere else, and they do, because it's a destination spot here. Our hotels, our restaurants are full all the time because of all the activities here. All those dollars they're spending, that 1 cent money goes to us that they're spending. And I can tell you this, on a 4% tax that the state charges, we get 21 cents on that dollar. On the 5th cent alone, we get 78 cents out of that dollar that stays right here in the city of Casper. And then Evansville and the county, they all get their piece. I couldn't be a responsible leader of this community if I didn't say not only yes, but hell yes, this should happen. Sure, you still have time.
Well, okay. That is that you guys raised everybody's property tax.
No.
Okay,
We didn't.
okay.
We didn't.
You guys are next. We know what's going on.
The city has nothing to do with property tax. Nothing.
You got $200 million sitting in your bill in your pot right now. I think you have plenty of money to do.
The city has. I'm willing to banter with you. But we have to answer one thing at a time. The city has nothing to do with property tax.
You got a lot to do with the roads, and I count 46 potholes from out at 8 Mile Road all the way down to the fairground.
And we filled 8,000 so far this year, but I'm not going to continue with this.
Okay,
You still have time, so you're welcome to. That's fine. You said your piece, I said mine. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Please state your name.
Ms. Marion Saban. You guys have had it voted in since 1976. I wonder why it is that you want to make it permanent. What's the concern? That we're waking up and we're not going to pay you anymore? The United States of America is a republic, and the rights belong to and are held by the individual. Our governmental system as a democracy is entrusted with the care of the many rather than the few. Our Constitution limits our government intervening constantly on behalf of the weak and greedy.
conversely promoting more weakness and greed. The preamble of our Constitution states, "We the people." There is no I. Those we elect or are appointed are not employed by the people to vote their conscience. Their job is to vote as their constituents say. We the people have a civic duty and obligation to involve ourselves in the affairs of our government, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. When our elected leaders and representatives show disrespect and disregard for what we the people say, when they vote for the me, myself, and I, they create apathy amongst the people, and they are circumventing our rights. Government control is the result of bureaucratic beliefs that they need uniform code of conduct to cover behavior that is not uniform. That people have not relinquished their constitutional rights to govern themselves, especially in which is their own private property and ability to vote for their own needs. Our government is to remain limited to the management of only that which creates a financial burden on its people, not in the management of wants over needs. When we choose security over opportunity, we are given chains and we are secured. This backdoor approach in stripping the constitutional right to vote from the people is nothing more than an exercise of totalitarianism by elitist dictators. Those whom believe they can govern the people better than the people can govern themselves. The budgets across the state have exceedingly increased with the rise in property taxes. There is no revenue problem, only a spending problem. Certain self-serving individuals whose only objective is to manipulate the people and create a further dependent society from which they can profit for themselves with no moral integrity or honor. Those who we must thank in exceptionally large measure for this incestuous act upon our own constituents are Bruce Nell, Steve Friel, and Peter Nicolason, for starters. Obscuring the law and finding a way around the rights of the voters who entrust you with their care is treachery deserving of prosecution. We are not asking you to dismiss this infringement of our sanctity. We are demanding it from you immediately in the matter of the codification of the optional 1-cent sales tax. We also hereby declare that requesting a 6th is not optional either, as the majority of people voted no when it was presented in the form of a specialty tax. Do your defined job, cease and desist from further infringement on our rights to vote on any permanent tax, or we will be forced to ensure your removal as our officials.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition of the 5th cent?
Mayor, members of council, my name is Ross Schrickman. 2 years ago, I moved here from Pennsylvania. And one of the main reasons I moved here was the ultimate tax burden I was experiencing in Pennsylvania. 60% of my net income was going to taxes. And I was approaching 70 years old at the time. To give you a breakdown, I'm a self-employed insurance agent. So I had a 28% federal income tax, a 15.3% self-employment tax, which pays for Medicare and Social Security. But if you're still working and you have to keep working, you keep paying that and you pay taxes on that. 3% state income tax, 1% local income tax, 6% sales tax, $9,000 in property taxes, and get this, an occupational privilege tax for the privilege of working, okay? If I had remained in Pennsylvania and died, my estate, what was left after taxes, would have been, since I don't have any spouse or children, my estate with my brothers would have been 12% of what was left over, okay? So when I came here, I was very pleased to learn that we, the people, have some ability to vote on our taxes. And I was going to vote no. I think it was a 6% in 2021. I went to a meeting and it was explained to me. It was justified. one of the benefits of having the citizens vote is that government officials have to justify the need. And I understand, and I've been in a number of your meetings instead of long working groups, and I understand the challenges of infrastructure that's aging, blight, crime, staffing issues, all of that. But you also have your goal number 3 for the next 2 years, which is citizen engagement. This is one way to do citizen engagement. And it's been mentioned that 70%, and it's in the resolution, 70% always vote yes. If you ever buy an investment product, one of the things they say is past history is no guarantee of future results. I was out campaigning for a number of candidates last year, and I was surprised at how many older people, especially, and disabled people in our community are struggling really hard. And maybe some of the blight that we're seeing and the properties that aren't being taken care of are the result of people just not having enough money to get a lawnmower, you know? So I would encourage you to consider not passing this, letting the voters continue to ask you questions and justify the spending, rather than going down a path that takes some of the ability of us, the citizens, to participate. And I appreciate your time. Any questions?
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition of the 5 cent proposal? All right, there being no others to speak for or against an ordinance regarding the 5 cent optional excise tax, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
Statute section 39-15-203 AIF2.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read. Moved by Councilor.
Either one of them.
Councilor Gamera, seconded by Councilor Ingebretson. Okay, discussion. Sir.
So a couple of different things that have come across. Mr. Strickman, I always appreciate sometimes we're on the wrong side of what we believe in, and I appreciate how respectful you are, and I appreciate how you have approached us and being able to have that conversation with us. I greatly appreciate that and understand, and I hear what you're saying. Beyond that, this conversation obviously is a difficult conversation for some people. We're in just one step of this. This is going to have to go down a whole litany of not only us, but the county commission and other municipalities. So there are a lot of hurdles left to this, to have this conversation, to be able to do this. And so I'm open to the idea of looking at this for the betterment of our community, for the investment of our community. And then we'll wait to see how it goes down the rest of the road. So anyway, thank you, Ross. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I will tell you, I was elected based on who I am. I mean, we all were. We were elected to do the job for the folks that put us in this office. That's why we're here. That's not always going to be fun. So, and I could tell you, for every person that likes what I do, there's somebody that doesn't like what I'm doing. It's the nature of the beast. It's a tough situation to be in. So at the end of the day, for me, it comes down to what is best for my community, what is best for the folks that I'm serving, what is best for my own family and my own children. And I can tell you, we devoted our streets in the city of Casper have a grade of 59. We devoted $22 million of 1 cent money over the next 4 years. And at the end of that 4 years, we're still going to be at a 59. We have just done 8,000 potholes. We have street projects going all over the place, which I noted last week. And if you try to drive down 12th Street right now, you'll know 8 million miles a year those roads get, 12th and 13th Street, 8 million, and they're not even our busiest streets. It is impossible to keep up with. We have a stormwater situation going on, and if any of you saw the flood we just had, and the car is floating down past Natrona High School because our sewer can't take the amount of water we're getting, we have a $40 million upgrade that's required. So when people say we're wasting money, I'd love for anybody to show me where we waste a dime. We bought a police station, a building that is going to be, at the end of the day, a $40 million investment that will literally pay for itself in 15 years based on what we're paying to rent our dispatch and our police department. I mean, they're all things that we look at judiciously and exhaustively to try to find the best way to stretch these dollars. Inflation catches up with the city of Casper, just like it does your own pocketbook. This particular tax, it's approved by, somebody accused us of not doing what the constituents wants. Maybe not what you want, but 70% of the people are on board with what we're doing. It's been proven for 50 years. So this isn't a backdoor thing. It's always been available. We're just getting it done now. And yes, you may see a 6 cent hit the ballot. That'll be up to the voters. And if you want a new library and you want a new public health building and you want all these things that cost money, that's your chance to approve that. That's your chance to say yes or no. But I can tell you, I have no issue whatsoever voting for this. I have no issue getting it pushed through. But like it's been said before, we're just one cog. There's Evansville, there's Edgerton, there's Midwest, there's bar none. And I'm literally stunned when that lady said Evansville's not behind this. If the voters chose not to do this in 4 years and we don't get this passed through the county, good luck. That's what I would tell them. Good luck. Good luck Midwest, good luck Edgerton, good luck bar none, and good luck Evansville, because it's going to get awful tough. City of Casper will make it. We've got the largest contingency of people. We will find a way to get through this. But I'm telling you, the amenities that we provide our particular customers and our constituents are beyond measure. That's why people come here, because of our way of life, because of the way we live and the things that are offered to them in our communities that you're not going to get somewhere else. You can go to California, Mr. Schiff, and set a 10% tax out of his check. We don't have state tax. We don't have a right to work tax. We don't have any of those taxes. So these are taxes that are for our community that just help us, that are paid for a whole bunch by people that are coming to visit. It's just a really good thing for us. I'm telling you, and I'm not going to convince anybody, and you're not going to change my mind, because I've looked at this from upside down and inside out. But Counselor.
I'd like to say that I am a Casper native, and in 1974, that 1 cent went a long ways. We were able to get the rec center, we were able to do the event center, we were able to do incredible things with that money.
Yeah.
And for events that I'm sure you enjoy and the rest of the citizens enjoy at some point. And so in 1974, we were able to do things of which we can no longer do in 2023.
How did that rec center?
Excuse me.
And so
You guys are
it
ridiculous.
is important for us to be able to try to have the money so that we can build our infrastructure. We're having to cut all these other costs. We cannot put money into our city buildings. We have the sewer line, so it is very important for us to look at this and then make this more of a permanent tax, and then consider the 6 cent, because we do have approximately 13 counties that already have the 6 cent. And so I do think that it's important for us to look at this for our own city. If you see other cities thriving and you wonder why, it's because they have increased their city taxes and we have not. And so this is something that we need to consider.
Well, and just to piggyback on you, we're built, the new YO Sports Ranch is coming, 165,000 square feet under roof. That's going to bring regional, national, and state competitions into our community. Our infrastructure can't handle that. Those people coming in here. We've got a plan for our future. You know, we have swimming pools that are free in our community for our constituents. We have a rec center that allows people of moderate to low income to be able to enjoy those amenities. Those are all funded. A lot of that stuff's funded by 1 cent. We're putting a new roof on, I believe, with 1 cent money, aren't we, on the rec center? So, I mean, there's, you know, it does so much good in our community, so much good. And would a 6 cent do even more? Laramie County, Cheyenne, passed a 6 cent special tax They've raised $128 million. They're building their own sports ranch. Ours is being privately built. The city donated the land. That's all we have in it. And I mean, I just can't stress enough how important this is. And if you could just open your mind to, it's a penny at a time. Oh, it's a penny now. It's going to be a penny later. Then next thing you know, you're going to want 15 cents. That's ridiculous. That's not fair. Since 1976, it's been 1 penny. And we're just trying to keep that penny. We're not even trying to add to it. This is about keeping the penny we've had since 1976. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for our people, and it's the right thing for our community. Brandy, I think you were up.
I just wanted to say, first and foremost, I said I wanted to make this permanent when I ran, so people in my ward knew I was going to vote for this. That said, if the 5th cent were to go away, and it's an if because we haven't extended it, Casper will not be paying for pools because we have to pay for police cars. We have to pay for fire trucks. We have to fix the street. We don't have to have swimming pools. We don't have to have Hogadon. We don't have to have the Ford Wyoming Center. We don't have to have the rec center, and we certainly don't need to have parks. So if we lose the 5th cent and we have to fix the roads or buy a police car, which of course you're going to want to have, what do we lose? We lose our nice things. The 5th cent is dedicated to other things because we have nice things. If we don't have the 5th cent, we won't have the nice things.
Councilor Pollock.
Thanks. Yep. What I think about when I think about this is, we look at the budget. We look at the budget every year. The budget is a public document. I would encourage you to look at the budget. Look where 5th cent money goes. We took a relatively painstaking process this most recent time to think hard about allocation, to think about where the needs were most warranted. And I also think about the fact that, to Mr. Schriftman's point, we enjoy darn near the lowest tax burden of any population in the United States. We're very fortunate for that. It feels like we pay a lot of taxes because any amount of taxes feels like a lot, right? It's coming out of your pocketbook and you feel that. But in reality, oil and gas pays our taxes here. We don't. So I think that it's important to keep in mind when you look at a situation like Mr. Schriftman's in other states, the type of tax burdens that those folks are experiencing relative to ours, we're not even in the same ballpark. And the reality is, if we make this extended, we haven't shifted the tax burden at all, right? The tax burden is still identical to what the tax burden is right now, but what it allows us to do is plan further ahead. A 4-year cycle, when you've got this uncertainty for planning purposes, is very difficult. We're planning road projects for 8, 12 years down the road. And if we have all of which are funded by 5th cent, by the way, all of our roads. So if we want to talk about potholes, I mean, if we think 46 potholes is bad now, right? If we don't have certainty that we can continue to maintain our roads, it makes it really difficult for us to plan. And so because we've seen such a long history of support from our community, to me, it's a responsible thing to do. Looking at the budget, I've looked at it every year with a fine-tooth comb, and our staff does too. And to me, this is a service to not only the city staff so that we can plan further ahead with some degree of certainty, but also to the citizens, because it doesn't shift the tax burden. It just creates some amount of certainty. This is an extension, right? If truly we believe that this has gone wrong and it's not, a future council can remove this, right? Like it's not, we haven't circumvented the voters. This is not a backdoor approach. This has been on the books. Wyoming state statute doesn't allow municipalities very many options for taxation, right? There are very few levers that we can pull to generate revenue directly for the city. This is one of them, and this is one that has been widely supported across our community for decades. So to me, it is a responsible thing to do. It is the fiscally responsible thing to do, to be able to look at the budget, look at the needs of our community, make decisions that allow for long-term planning for our community. And to me, that's why I would support an extension. I hope other communities will as well, because as the mayor said, there are other communities that would be, I mean, looking at their budgets, they would be in serious trouble, and the citizens of those communities would feel it immediately. So I know sometimes we feel like tax is essentially the other 4-letter word in Wyoming, right? But this doesn't shift the tax burden, and the ramifications of leaving this quote unquote optional tax, like it's not optional for these communities, right? They will fold. And our communities, we will have $0 for roads. Like, to me, that's not optional. It's not responsible. This is, to me, the most prudent, responsible thing that we can do. One of our other goals is sustainability for this organization. This is the path forward for sustainability. In terms of 6 cent, I don't think it's a secret that there are projects that some people think would be helpful to our community. But to me, that's where we draw the line, and that goes to the voters. Just like they did in Cheyenne, they get a menu of options. You can vote yes or no on every single one of them. To me, that would be the way forward that I would support on 6 cent. And those things are optional, right? Those are upgrades to our community. But we're not talking about upgrades. We're talking about the literal bare minimum that we need to do to keep our community in good, healthy working order. So to me, it is the responsible and prudent thing to do, and I will support it, and I will encourage other councils to do the same.
Thank you. Councilor Gamero.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Pollack. I'm in agreement with all that. You said a lot of the things I was hoping to say, as always, in a much better way. I want to echo the Vice Mayor's comments. I do appreciate, Mr. Shriftman, you coming and speaking to us tonight. I think you totally have merits to your argument, and I appreciate the way you articulated those to us. Clearly, we had some examples that, I don't think were good representation, and I think undermines the positions that those folks were taking, but I thought you did a very good job. Councilor Pollack outlined it very well. To me, it's a responsibility of ours. The criticism I've heard of 1 cent, the only criticism I've heard of 1 cent is the allocation to nonprofits, which is this most recent allocation, 2.25 million. That's 3% of the overall 1 cent. And so, I know folks can, I think there's a debate to be had there, but the majority of it, it's streets, it's water, it's fire, it's sewer, it's the essentials. To Councilor Pollack's point, it's our responsibility to make sure we take care of those things. I'm really proud of the fact that we've nearly doubled our streets budget. People talk about potholes all the time when we do surveys of the 1 cent before every election cycle. It's streets that everyone talks about. And so I've been really proud that this council has boosted our streets department so tremendously. We still got work to do. We still got to keep increasing it because the allocation that we have currently is just to maintain our, bad grades. I would love to start improving our streets over the long term, but that is absolutely impossible without the 5th cent. And so I think it's our responsibility to continue it. I think the voters have proven over 50 years that they support it. So this isn't an additional tax. It's just, securing, providing some security, some stability so that we can do some long-term planning and not always acting in a reactive kind of 4-year span. I am a huge fan of the way City of Cheyenne does it. They have a menu of items that are supported by their 6 cent, and then it's on the voters to decide, do you, the voters, want to see a redesign of the Fort Wyoming Center? I would have loved to have seen the Hogan on Ski Lodge on there, expansion and remodeling of Fort Casper potentially. Like, there are things that are considered more so optional. I would love for the voters to have as much authority and autonomy over guiding those sorts of capital investments. But I don't think there's much room for debate when we're talking about maintaining our streets, providing clean water, getting solid waste to the responsible places. That's the bare necessity that is expected of a municipality. And so that's why I'm supportive of it at this time, and likewise would, advocate further support. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to bring up one more point. Even with the 5th cent, the community engagement is vastly important to this council. We sent out a survey that was sent back to us. And that's how we decided how our 1 cent money was to be spent. That wasn't us deciding where it went. There was a menu of items from streets to nonprofits to the whole thing on there. And they were ranked by the folks that returned those surveys. And that's how the money was literally dealt out by this council. It was based on citizen engagement and what the citizens asked us to do with that 1 cent money, which included nonprofits. And we've had some kickback on that. Why are you giving money to nonprofits? Well, wait a minute. That's what the survey told us to do. And it's important too. Nonprofits are important to our community. The mental health, homelessness is at the top of our list right now. We have a bunch of nonprofits that help with that. And that money, there's not enough money to do it all, obviously, but it sure helps. I just can't imagine what it would be like without it. So anyway, I think you've heard from us. I anticipate we're gonna have 2 more readings on this. I'll get to you. We're gonna have 2 more readings on this. And the public is certainly welcome to engage us and we're welcome to have more healthy discussion on this. Councilor Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have been back and forth on which way to go, whether it should always go to the people or whether we should go ahead and try to extend this. By the same token, we now get roughly between 70 and 80 million on direct distribution from the state legislature. Every time that comes up in the budget discussions, the state legislature is talking about reducing that amount, potentially cutting it entirely. This is about the same amount of money that we get from that. We as the city are trying over the long term to establish a budget and a revenue source that when the state does take that money away, we will be self-sustaining. By the same token, you have heard the people around the DS talk about the money that goes into water and to streets and into sewer. We have allocated, I believe it was 2.5 million to the water fund. That money goes strictly to the replacement of the water lines in our streets and in our city. And if the 1 cent were to go away, that $2.5 million, instead of being collected from the out-of-towners as 1% money, it would wind up going directly to the citizens that use our water system in the form of your water bills. Those things have to be maintained. So that becomes one of those things that you pay me now or you pay me later. And if 1/3 of our 1 cent comes from out of town, I would rather pay 2/3 of it than 3/3 of it. So I think that is another thing that we have heard over the long haul as well, is that the 1 cent does. Now, by the same token, I would hope that future councils would wind up periodically send out that survey to see if the citizenry would like us to reallocate the way that money is spent, so that maybe the nonprofits, instead of being at the bottom at the 3%, move up to the 7%. But so far, police, fire, water, sewer, streets have all been the top 5 on that survey. And as far as I'm concerned, those are the things that the city government should be worrying about to make sure of the quality of livability of the city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
And as a follow-up, we listened to the people in the audience come up here. I am very disappointed that they weren't willing to sit here and listen to our responses to some of the comments. Thank you, Mr. Schiffman, for staying. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I appreciate you for staying here.
The last thing I want to say, and then we're going to move on, is I'm on the Joint Powers Water Board, and I know that water facility is getting old. I also know that the EPA is going to demand UVA or UV lighting that's going to have to take place. We currently deionize the water at the plant before it comes to your house. They are also going to start requiring UV lighting, which is going to be millions and millions of dollars. They don't give you the money to do it. They just mandate that you do it. So that money's got to come from somewhere. Our stormwater is 100 million, which I mentioned earlier. And I could tell you, our water and sewers take care of about 80,000 people, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood, because we serve not just Casper, but our outlying communities as well. And I can tell you the water, 80,000 people produce a lot of waste. And that water, when it leaves our plant and gets put back into the river, is cleaner than when it came in. I can tell you that. So we do a really good job of making sure that we are studious about taking care of our water and sewer problems. I'm really proud of the city and the way they do that, but that all requires money. And this is just, in my opinion, how it has to happen. But we I guess, talked about it enough. We'll have 2 more chances to do this again. So with that said, are there any amendments? Okay, any abstentions or nay votes? Okay, all voting aye?
Aye.
Including Councilor Bond, please record the vote. Thank you. Council will now consider consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
881, authorizing a contract for professional services with Cone Incorporated for servicing and maintenance of elevators located at city facilities. 882, approving and adopting the Evansville, Texas Street Extension Study for the Casper metropolitan area. 883, approving a right-of-way easement agreement with the city of Casper and Flat Warehouse LLC. 884, authorizing an agreement with GH Phipps Wyoming LLC for the Casper Family Aquatic Center Natatorium Improvements Project. And 885, establishing fees for the Metropolitan Animal Services and rescinding resolution number 18-114.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda items just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Gamroff, seconded by Councilor Haskins. Mr. City Manager, would you like to comment on any of these items?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I appreciate you. Thank you. Any abstentions or nay votes? Okay, all voting aye,
Aye.
Okay. Including Councilor Bond. Thank you, sir. Please record the vote.
All councilors voting on the motion passes.
Okay, at this time, we ask councilors to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. We'll start with Councilor Kathy.
Oh, basically, last week I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and they had two proposals come forward. One is for a church building in Paradise Valley, and the other is for a slightly oversized detached garage in just south of Privet Lane on the private road that runs through there. And those will be coming to council with a due pass. There were no objections to either one of those at Planning and Zoning. Again, want to pass on Renee Jordan Smith, retired from the city on Friday. She had spent 36 and a half years with the city, and she deserves our applause and our gratitude for the effort and the work that she has put in. She has been the, I guess, the executive secretary, would that be the right term, to the city manager for the last several years. She has been the one that has been responsible for making sure that the mayor gets his proclamations, that she takes care of our travel plans. She takes care of the council as well. So again, I would like to make a public thank you to her for her service with the city.
Amen.
Attended the water board meeting today, and as a follow-up to what the mayor said, that UV purification,
Disinfectant treatment.
disinfectant, thank you. It's heck when you get old, you just go blank. But we just approved today to go ahead and apply to the SLIB for $16 million to install that, and we are under obligation, actually order by the EPA to have that installed by 2028. Now, that loan will wind up with no change in debt load to the water board, because in October of this year, we wind up paying off the loan to the city. So that becomes a wash as far as financial. But to let people know what it takes to run the city and what some of these unfunded mandates that come down can cost. And that is a $16 million hit to the Joint Powers Water Board and the Regional Water Treatment Plant. And it has to be done within the next 5 years. Attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting today, and there have been a lot of improvements going on at the airport. Ridership is up considerably from what it has been the last few years. And so wanted to pass that on as well. And one other thing that has nothing to do with any of the meetings, but it has to do with my comment a week ago. And basically, so that you folks would know that once you leave the city limits of Casper, as far as the county and game and fish is concerned, it is perfectly legal to shoot feral/wild cats and wild dogs. And in a lot of places, that is what is done, and that is what is taken care of. And from some of the places I've lived, and you can talk to your local ranchers and the people that live out in the county, that is the way they handle feral cats and wild dogs. By the same token, I got a lot of flack and emails from anonymous. If you don't have the courage to stand up and state your name, then I basically don't have much use for that. You see my name, I am willing to stand up for what I believe. By the same token, I don't think it is appropriate discourse to wish that I was a Nazi, that I would rot in hell, that the myriad of other things. And this becomes a symptom of our society. And to me, partly why our young people have such a floundering in junior high and high school. At my age, I don't really care to a point. I am interested if you're willing to have civil discourse. But if I'm a 15-year-old junior high student trying to figure out where I fit into the bigger scheme of things, and I am being bombarded with these anonymous, trash, foul languages, you start to understand why there is such a problem within our youth of suicide, drugs, all of these other things, because they haven't had the skills and some of the life training to be able to cope with these things. When I was growing up, if somebody wanted to bully me, they had to be standing face to face. And if I finally got the courage to stand up to them, that normally solved the problem. And by the way, I was the short, fat kid and bullied all the way through grade school and halfway through high school. So I know what that's about. But these types of things have to stop, and we have to get back to civil discourse. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Bond, I forgot that you're staring me right in the face and I should have. I apologize.
No problem, Mayor. I don't have trouble going second or.
You're
last,
muted
but-
right now, so.
Let's see.
Yeah.
That.
The bull rider wanted me to let you carry on, but
Now can you hear me?
still can't hear you.
Still can't hear.
Is there anything on our end that we can do to help facilitate his vocal cords? I muted them all on mine. Would that have anything to do with it?
Michael, can you say something?
Test. Right. Test.
We've already seen some sign language tonight. I don't know that we need. Mr. Bond, he thinks it might be on your end.
No, no.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt, you just.
Is that different? No. I've unmuted.
Okay. Please.
News, I only have fun things. Okay, so you're obviously still here, so Whiskey Myers might be off the table for you tonight, but hopefully it's a great showing at Ford Wyoming Center this evening. Mark Willis, Thursday, David Street Station at 6 p.m. I believe that's one of their free concerts. I did go to the Jeffree Star thing this weekend. Holy people and loudness. Obviously, I'm a country girl, so not my jam, but my kids thought it was great. And the lines for people downtown to get into that store are amazing. So obviously I'm going there. Saturday, there is a Spuds game free for veterans. Contact the VA if you'd like a ticket. You do have to get it from them before the game. And both Friday and Saturday this weekend, 7:30, the Lyric with Opera Wyoming will be playing The Sound of Music. I have a board meeting with Public Health on Thursday, so that's my only reporting to do, so that's all I've got.
Very nice, thank you. Mr. Bonder, do we have you yet?
Is this working now?
Keep trying.
Okay.
Councilor Paul.
Thank you. I don't have too much to report. I got to sit in as a guest at the SIM meeting with Ray last week, and got to meet a number of the service providers in our community. And also got to hear from the Chief Justice of the Wyoming Supreme Court about some of the sort of judicial side of things when it comes to mental health and incarceration, and some of the things that they're working on. So obviously, that entity, our court system sees a lot of the impact of that situation in our communities as well. And so it was a really interesting meeting. I was very appreciative to have been able to attend that. So thanks, Ray, for having me. Went to the Regional Water Board meeting today as well. I don't really have anything to add beyond what Steve had. And I have LGBTQ advisory on Friday, so I'll be able to provide an update to you. But as far as I know right now, generally that group is spending most of their time working on outreach to other councils around the county, trying to gauge interest in expanding non-discrimination to other municipalities and towns within the county. To what impact, I don't know yet. I think they're really kind of in the exploratory phase of just trying to meet council people, just to see if there's any appetite at any of those bodies to address the issue within their communities. And so certainly have more to report to you on that effort next week, though. We did get presented with a really pretty useful set of stats that we're still diving through from Casper Pride. So I'll be happy to provide that report once we finalize it with the committee. So I think that's
very cool.
All I have. Thanks.
Mr. Bond, are you with us?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Is that?
What movie was that? Remember that movie?
Anchorman.
Yeah, thank you. Counselor Ingerbretson.
Just a few things. So I just wanted to encourage everybody to try to go to Casper Collins Day again. It is this Saturday from 10 to 4. We'll have some reenactments and some fun things to do. I do have. Thank you.
Welcome.
You gonna go? No, shout out for Casper. And so now you make me forget my everything. I'm so proud. I have the contractor board meeting that I'm attending on Thursday, and I just wanted to just say that a couple of things regarding the TNR. I do not advocate on hurting or harming animals in any way. So I strongly do advocate of a humane way of taking care of these animals. And then I did want to give out, we had an essay submitted to us by a young gal that was 12 years old. And I just wanted to give her a shout out saying just well done and keep up the good work. I appreciate reading her essay. So that's it.
Very much so. Thank you for bringing that up.
She mentioned out there with a couple interpreters over there. So get out and explore that. Casper Collins Day is pretty amazing and a lot of reenactors. So explore. I was just going to mention the beach day is coming up on Friday. I guess it's the 21st. That's a free event for kids 5 to 13, and it's sponsored by the Rec Foundation. It's going to be at Highland Park, 9:30 to noon, or 9:30 to 12:30. And they're promising a fun-filled morning. So wear your swimsuit for your little kids because there's water slides and a bunch of good family fun. The other thing is just kind of a reminder for the public that it is now the city has started its annual preventative maintenance hydrant flushing, which is essential for long-term water quality. So if they're in your area, you could experience a decreased water pressure or some discoloration. And they said, bear with it, let your water trickle out of your faucet a little bit and it'll run clear in about 15-20 minutes. So just a little PSA, but get it out there. And that's all I got.
Thank you very much. Counselor Gamera.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Kath, for mentioning Renee's retirement again. I was glad to see a lot of my colleagues there at the reception Friday to see her off. It was also fun to have kind of a little shrine put together of mementos, and so it's fun to hear stories of obviously we get to see folks every Tuesday night, but it's a little different environment than when you're working day to day in City Hall. So it was cool to be able to peek behind the curtains a little bit and hear some stories about what it's like working for the city. I also attended the Yellow Wolf concert Friday night. Really great turnout. Definitely one of the largest events they've had there. I didn't see any issues. I saw only a single person escort out of the venue. The security did a top-notch job. I saw our police department had some officers walking around, so was really happy with the way that event was managed. I walked around downtown before the event. I drove around and walked around after the event. I didn't see any issues, so I hope that was the case. I hope that was our police department's experience as well. Was a little bit of a bummer to see Opera Wyoming. Thank you for Councilor Haskins for mentioning them. They did have to reschedule their opening night for Sound of Music because it was going on the same night. And that was the loudest music I've heard at David Street. So yeah, it would have been really hard to pull that off. So I think it was the right decision on their part, but sucks that there was a bit of a schedule conflict there. So looking forward to, I encourage people to check out whenever they reschedule that date. The only other note I had as far as that night goes is I parked in the parking garage like I do for a lot of events, and I have to say there was very few people using it. It always kind of surprises me. It was free that evening, and I believe it is free most evenings and holidays and weekends. I mean, they definitely have hours where you don't have to pay to be in there. It's lit. There's video surveillance. It's 1 block away from David Street, literally 1 block. I didn't have any issues. I walked around the parking garage as well. I didn't see anything that made me feel like it was dangerous or not safe to use. I hear that occasionally, and I'm not dismissing those concerns for people, but I use it a lot and I've never had issues. And so I guess I would just encourage people to consider it, especially during these big events. I bet there's people that walked 4 or 5 blocks and they parked, you know, way out Boo-Foo, and there was no street lighting and, you know, certainly no protection from the elements or anything like that. So I guess I would just encourage people to consider the parking garage when you're parking downtown, especially evenings, weekends, and holidays when they often don't charge to be there. Very surprised with how few cars I saw in the garage. And then lastly, we got our first sales tax report for this fiscal year. I was really excited to see that we're up 6.3% from projected. So good start, crossing my fingers that that's a trend that is going to continue through the rest of the fiscal year. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor.
Council of Governments on Thursday, Rec Board on Friday, and LGBTQ Advisory Council on Friday as well. So got those going on. And again, I just want to say thank you again. I'm not trying to beat this to a dead horse, Mr. Schiffman, but I just appreciate your respectfulness and your dialogue with us. Now you stuck around to hear us all talk and be able to do that. And so I do appreciate you a great deal and you being here. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, concerning you,
Mr. Mayor.
that we had to take that up, but it was
Mr. Mayor.
unfortunately the appropriate thing for us to do at this time. So RJPB meeting today, Joint Powers Water Board. The only thing we forgot is funding has to be in place by October of this year, and that's why that loan was applied for, because that has to be done. I attended graduation ceremonies at the mission. I had lunch with them. I got to congratulate and present to 33 of their graduates. The mission, they have a 3-phase program. It takes over a year to do, and they're doing some really good work there. You know, I know we've had some complaints about them when it comes to homeless, but I'm telling you, take some time and go down there. They'll be happy to have you serve. They'll be happy to have you even have lunch with them and meet and see some of the great things that are going on there. You know, we do have some things going on in our community concerning some homeless, but those unfortunately happen to be the ones that don't want to conform. They don't want to follow societal rules. They don't even want to follow the mission's rules. That's why they can't gain admittance there. But it's been a bit of a wives' tale or a myth when they say they kick them out all day and they're just roaming the streets. That's actually not true. They have programming available. They have social workers that, you know, that have them in programming, and they're the ones that you're seeing out and about. Not all of them, but some of them are the ones that just don't want to conform. And so those are the ones we're trying to address with our coalitions and trying to come up with some real life problem solving when it comes to that particular part of our review, I guess, if you will. Friday, I'm delivering a speech to the Wyoming Life Flight. This is their 40th anniversary. So we're sure thankful to have them in our community, especially living remote like we do. Jeffree Star, my daughter and I waited till Sunday till it slowed down because she really wanted to go. And, she bought some makeup. I bought some yak steaks. I haven't cooked them yet. I'll let you know. But he's sure done a lot for this community, I will tell you. And it was evident by the amount of people that were there. Yellow Wolf, certainly not my cup of tea. I made it about 15 seconds and we were gone. In fact, my wife said it sounded like two blenders fighting a microwave, so we got out of there. But the crowd loved it, the ones that did like it. And that's why what makes our lives so unique is we all have different interests and likes. And so that was good to see, especially our younger people. I think for the most part, it was rather respectful and well done. And so good on our young people, good on Jeffrey Sarr for bringing that to our community. I swore in a new peace officer late Friday night. It was kind of a special deal because he's graduating this week, so it had to get done. And it's always good to swear those and bring those new guys into our fold and watch it grow. In fact, I was at the Alcoba Sunday and ended up hanging out with one of the officers I swore in a month ago and his wife. And so just what a great community we live in with such good people. And our police department deserves a lot more than they get. Thursday morning, Natrona County Government breakfast at 7 a.m. Councilor Haskins mentioned Mark Wills is coming Thursday night to David Street Station. I don't know if any of you even know who he is, but I guarantee you know his music. So my band used to open for Mark. I toured with him in the 2000s. This guy is incredible. I cannot believe that he's going to be here for free. And I have men's night golf and I'm going to miss a bunch of it. I'm so mad, but I'm going to make part of it. Mark is awesome. So if you like good country music, he'll be your guy. And then lastly, like Ray said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We sure love it when our citizens engage us and come and speak with us. So we know they're concerned and we know they're involved. There is just no room for the discourse and the being flipped off by somebody sitting in our audience because they don't like what you're saying. And, you know, that it's really irritating to me. So I'm just going to put the public on notice. You are welcome here anytime. Please use your manners. Please be courteous as we are to you. It's not a hard thing to do to refrain from being a jackass for 10 minutes. I just don't think that's a big ask. I guess that's about it for
Mr.
me.
Mayor.
Notice was given of an executive session to take place at this date and this time. We have an attorney-client privilege matter to discuss. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session. And at the end of the conclusion of that executive session to reconvene this regular meeting solely for purposes of adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Pollock, seconded by Councilor Kathy. There being a majority of councilors present, a motion to adjourn into an executive session has been moved and seconded. This motion requires a 2/3 majority of the council present. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Including Councilor Bond. Thank you, sir. Please record the vote.
All councilors voting on the motion passes.
Thank you. A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned into an executive session. Yeah, we'll take a quick 2-minute break if that's okay for the restroom. Thank you.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock at David Street Station.
Yes, sir.
This Thursday, the 20th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's so
He's
good.
so good.
He's so good.
Yeah, so yeah, he's probably smiling in the inside. Yeah, so I should have been. Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm perfect. As long as they don't think I'm nuts, you probably got a little bit wrong. But I'd never say that. I appreciate you. The last comment today.